Hello guys, rounding up numbers, especially decimal fractions, will be another important aspect of math that we need to look at and review before we get started with geometry. All right, so what do we mean by rounding off numbers? So round off numbers mean to round up numbers and to round down numbers. And rounding down numbers have to do with making approximations from numbers such as 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And these numbers are rounded up to 1. And I will show you how we do this. Rounding down numbers will be numbers that are falling between 0 and 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 are rounded down and they become 0. So in order to explain this better, I will show you some of the values of pi. So some of you already know what this symbol represent. This is pi, and we use this value a lot when we solve for areas of circles, when we find volumes of cylinders and all of that later on in geometry. So this is a very famous expression, but that usually we round it up to uh, 2 decimal places. Sometimes we say to the nearest hundredth, or we would say to 2 decimal places. So these words are used interchangeably. So for example, you can see all the decimals for pi, 3.141592, and so on and so forth. And then we use the approximation symbol right here. Right here, just looking like equal sign, but these are smooth lines, just two double smooth lines, and then we use that to represent approximations. All right, we also have, for example, looking at the square root of 10, and the square root of 10 is a lot too, so you can see that the decimals are not recurring, and these numbers appear to be examples of irrational numbers. And you can see these are a lot of decimals, and you want to round these numbers up so that people would know the approximate values to these irrational numbers. So when you solve distance in geometry, maybe particularly finding the distance between 2 points, or finding the perimeter of a shape or of a plane shape, sometimes you might end up with numbers like square root of 10, and then you have to probably approximate to something. Okay, so in this case, if we wanted to approximate to the nearest hundredth or to 2 decimal places, we'll just cut it off after uh, 2 decimals following the point. Okay, all right, and then we will look at the next number to the 2 decimals, and if that number falls between 0 and 4, we would just round it down to 0, and we would say the final approximation to 2 decimal places will be 3.16. But if we wanted to round this number to say 5 decimal places, we'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So which means we're supposed to cut rest out. But before we do this, we'll decide to round up or round down. So 7 is the number that is cut off. The first number to be cut off from the original value of the square root of 10. So what we'll do is round 7 up, because 7, it falls between 5 through 9. So again, this will become 3.16228, so that we're making 7 become 1, 1, and then we're going to add 1 to the nearest decimal to 7, which is going to be 8. So in order to explain this better, I will just go ahead and highlight a couple of examples so that we can and discuss and work with these examples. All right, let's look at look at some examples here. All right, so the first problem here says round each of the following to the nearest hundredth. All right, so we're going to round each of these numbers to the nearest hundredth. All right, so we know that 100 is the second decimal place. So for the first problem here, 6 is the hundredth place, because we have tenths 7 is tenths, and 6 is hundredth. So we have 7 is in the tenth place, 6 is in the hundredth place, and since we're required to round to the nearest hundredth, we will not consider 8. 8 is the thousandth place. So since we're rounding this up to the nearest hundred, so we are going to draw a line here after the hundredth place, and then we're going to look at 8 to see if we need to round it up or round it down. So since 8 falls between 5 and 9, we're going to round it up to 1, and we're going to add that 1 to 6. So which means the final result here will be 5.77. That's what we're looking for. So, and then we'll just have the approximation sign like that. All right. So I am going to take my eraser and remove all this so that I can write the answer in front of it so you can see it more clearly. Okay, so the approximate value that we're getting for this number here to the nearest 100 will be 5.77. All right, let's move to the next example. Okay, for this problem here, we are going to cut this number like this so that we can look at the thousandth place. If the thousandth place falls between 0 and 4, that will be 0. And we'll just cut that out. Okay, so since we have 2 here, we're going to round it down to 0, and the approximate value for 0.4526 to the nearest hundred will be 0.45. So notice how I am cutting the hundredth place and keeping them, right? And just considering if this number here is going to be rounded up or down. All right, so I'm going to go to the third example here for number 1. So the hundredth place is the first 9 here. All right, so I have 23.89, but then I need to look at the next place, which is the thousand, and this number here is between 5 and 9. Okay, from 5 and 9. So I'm going to round it up to 1, and I am going to add it to the nearest digit to the left, which is 9. If I add that, it is going to give 23.89 plus 1, right? So when I do this here carefully, it'll be 1 plus 9 is 10. I'm going to write 0 and carry 1, bring it over here and add it to 8, and that'll be 9. And then I would have my 23. So this is exactly going to give me 23.90. So this will be the approximate value for this number right here. All right, let's go ahead and round each of the following numbers to the nearest tenth. Nearest tenth means the first decimal place. The first decimal place for this problem right here is 0. So I'm going to cut and keep the rest. But then the next digit to that is 1, and that's the hundredth place. And 1 falls from 0 to 4. And we're going to round that down to 0, and our final answer will be 56.0. And this is how we leave your answer. So you're not going to say because 0.0 means nothing and then you say your final answer is 56. If you do this, you have done it wrongly. So the interpretation for this one would mean that you round it up to the nearest whole number. So you don't want to do that. So we would leave our answer like this. We'll move to the next one, and then we're going to cut the 10th place and keep. But we know that 5 is a number between 5 to 9. Yes, and then we're going to round it up to 1, and we're going to carry that 1 and add it to 8, and that gives us the approximate value to 7.9 to the nearest tenth. Okay, finally, we have this problem right here. So we're going to cut the tenth value, because tenth value is just the first decimal place, which is 0.9. So we know here that 8 is a number that falls here where we have to round it up. So we're going to round 8 up to get 1. We're going to take this 1 and add it to this 9. And your approximate value will be a little, maybe let's see what we can do here. So it will be 9.9, and you're going to add 1 to 0.9. So when we do this, we get 10 point, then we'll move that 1 over, and that will be 10. That's going to be 10.0. I hope this is helpful. We're going to need this skill a lot, because when you solve problems involving angles, or problems involving measuring line segments, or measuring the distance between 2 points on the coordinate plane, sometimes you might need to find approximate values of what you're getting, so that you can represent, or you can easily write your answers down, or your results down. So this is why we are learning this. I hope this lesson is helpful. Thank you very much.